Long ago, in a village surrounded by thick forests and tall iroko trees, there lived a young hunter named Duro. Duro was strong, Duro was brave, but Duro had one terrible weakness. He was proud. He would stand in the village square and boast loudly, "I fear no beast, I fear no man, I do not even fear death." The elders would shake their heads, because in Africa we say, "The child who dares the storm will taste the rain first." But Duro did not listen. One evening, as the sun bled red into the horizon, Duro entered the forest alone. He wanted to hunt the biggest animal he could find just to prove himself again. The forest was unusually quiet. No birds, no insects, not even the wind moved. Then, from behind an ancient baobab tree, an old man stepped out. He was thin, his robe was gray, his eyes were deep, too deep. "Good evening, young hunter," the old man said calmly. Duro gripped his spear. "Old man, this forest is dangerous. You should not walk alone." The old man smiled slowly. "Dangerous? You said you feared nothing." Duro stiffened. "And who told you that?" The old man's eyes seemed to darken. "I hear everything. I walk everywhere." A cold wind passed between them. Then the old man said something that made Duro's heart skip. "You said you do not fear death." Silence. The forest felt heavier. Duro forced a laugh. "Ha! And if I did say so?" The old man straightened. "Then I have come to test you." Suddenly, the air grew colder. The old man's shadow stretched unnaturally long behind him. Duro swallowed. "Are you death?" he asked. The old man nodded once. "But do not worry, I will give you 3 chances to prove your courage." Duro, still proud, lifted his chin. "I accept." The old man smiled. "Good." And with that, the first test began. Death led Duro deeper into the forest until they reached a narrow bridge made of old wood. Beneath it was a dark river, silent and still. "Cross," Death said. "That is all?" Duro scoffed. But as he stepped onto the bridge, the wood creaked loudly. Halfway across, the wind rose violently. The bridge began to shake. The river below was no longer still. Shapes moved beneath the water. Whispers echoed. "Jump," the whisper said. "Fall." Duro's hands trembled. His legs felt weak. But he forced himself forward, step by step, until he reached the other side. Death nodded. "You did not run. Good." Duro smirked. "I told you, I fear nothing." But Death only watched him quietly. They walked until night fully swallowed the forest. Death pointed ahead. "Your second test. Walk through that clearing." Duro stepped forward confidently, but the moment he entered the clearing, the ground began to shift. From the darkness came lions, hyenas, snakes, all circling him. Their eyes glowed. Their growls filled the air. Duro raised his spear, but his hands were shaking now. The animals moved closer. He could feel his heartbeat pounding in his ears. "Stand," Death's voice echoed from nowhere. One snake lunged. Duro screamed and swung his spear wildly. Then suddenly, everything vanished. The clearing was empty. Only the wind remained. Duro fell to his knees, breathing heavily. Death appeared beside him. You felt fear. Duro's voice trembled slightly. It was only surprise. Death said nothing. For the final test, Death led Duro back toward the village, but something was wrong. Smoke filled the air. Screams echoed in the distance. As they reached the edge of the village, Duro froze. Houses were burning, villagers were crying, and in the center of it all, his mother lay on the ground, not moving. Duro's heart shattered. He ran to her side. "Mother! Mother!" No response. He looked up at Death with tears in his eyes. "Save her, please." Death stared at him. "You said you feared nothing." Duro's body shook. "I do not fear for myself, but I fear for losing the ones I love." Silence filled the air. Then the smoke disappeared. The fire vanished. The village stood whole again. His mother was nowhere on the ground. It had all been an illusion. Death stood before him one last time. "Now you understand," he said softly. "Courage is not the absence of fear. It is knowing what truly matters." Duro bowed his head for the first time in his life. He whispered, "I was foolish." Death nodded. "And because you have learnt, today is not your day." And just like that, he was gone. From that day on, Duro never boasted again. He still hunted, he was still brave, but when children spoke carelessly about fear, he would simply say, "Respect what is greater than you." And he never again challenged death.